All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. Chris and I here. We wanted to talk. I had a couple talking points. The first one is the P. Diddy allegations and the whole P. Diddy situation. Um, a couple main thoughts. I'll start off riffing here. You know, it's a very disturbing situation because, from my personal opinion, I don't have all the facts, but from me looking at it, to me it looks like P. Diddy is a pedophile, a homosexual dude that likes grooming young men, other men, without necessarily coming out and telling them. I also believe and just have a hunch that he's done a lot of psychedelics. So this guy is open to when you do psychedelics, like you are more open-minded. So this guy probably just wants to experience all these crazy sides of life without necessarily getting the consent of people around him, and he's probably engaging in a ton of illegal activity, a ton of very questionable and or horrible sexual activity, like performing sexual acts on people without their consent, pedophilia, etc., grooming. I mean, there's a disturbing video of him with Justin Bieber, and Justin Bieber's probably in his early teens in this video, and Diddy's probably what, like 30s at that point, or I don't know, something like that. And he's like hanging out with Justin Bieber without parental supervision and some stuff like that. It's just very disturbing. Um, and P. Diddy has been probably getting away with this stuff for a long time. And one side that I heard was he might be an informant. So he might have at some point teamed up with the feds to get other people to engage with him in these sketchy parties, and pretty much in doing so be able to eventually incriminate all these other people with him. Because Christian and I were talking previously about how Diddy and these other higher elites, they probably work on a system of interconnected blackmail and interconnected mutual destruction. So if you say something about what I did, well, I'm going to leak everything that you did because you were also doing something really bad. So it's just mutually assured destruction, and mutual about blackmail, pretty much, where these elites that are all doing really messed up stuff probably just have a lot of dirt on each other. And pretty much, I've heard him called the Epstein of the hip hop industry. And I do think it's similar, right? Epstein was trafficking young underage people, sex workers without their consent, probably grooming people, abducting people, like just very, very awful stuff. And honestly, I think Diddy was doing something similar. Having these parties, having a bunch of high up people grooming younger artists like Usher, like Justin Bieber, YK Osiris, trying to, turn them, trying to have homosexual sex with them and stuff like that. And probably get them drugged up or do things to them with, yeah. I mean, I really don't know, but this is pretty like it's pretty likely that this kind of stuff was happening on some level. Not to mention drugs, guns, and they were definitely recruiting, sex workers, illegal sex type stuff, um, you know, non-consensual sex type, and it's just bad. So he's definitely going to be going to jail. Whether or not he was part of the feds, I'm not sure, but honestly, it's just a mess up situation, and it kind of reminds us, guys, always be on the lookout for folks who seem to maybe have another agenda, right? People who, give you that vibe where maybe they're like getting too close or they're overstepping like a kind of normal social boundary, right? So just be aware of your boundaries and what's normal, because I myself, I'm a very easygoing person. And so if somebody oversteps a boundary ever so slightly, I may not catch it. You know what I mean? But these types of things remind you like, yo, there's bad people out there. We got to stay on guard. You know what I mean? So, um, yeah,
Wow.
just stay on guard and like, yeah, and just, yeah. What were you gonna say, Chris?
Yeah, Al, when did this happen and how do we know if he's going to jail? When did all this information start coming out? Like, what's the story here?
So well, his house was just recently raided by the feds. I don't know. Yeah, pretty much it just turned it the news came out that feds were infiltrating his house in, I think it was California or something like that. News just came out. They just randomly raided his house. So maybe they got a burden of evidence to then go and do this behind the scenes. They were building a case against him, type of thing. Maybe allegations started trickling into their system, and then they did this, and it's just on the news. And so, but everybody has known he's been doing sketchy stuff for a long time. So it's honestly like weird how they haven't done this even sooner, which leads people to believe that he was a Fed. So, but yeah, it just came out that they were infiltrating his house. So it's like just the clock was ticking for him.
Interesting. Yeah, like I've heard over the last probably 5, maybe even 10 years or so on different podcasts, YouTube videos, that there's always this kind of weird, sort of like, uh, I don't know exactly what to put it, but there's like this weird P Diddy rumors. There's always been P Diddy rumors about him being like very strange and like possibly doing like a lot of like criminal things, but also like very strange like sexual behavior, like like always wanting to like do like group sex and different things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so just lots of strange rumors I've heard. And then there was that Cassie lawsuit. I don't know if you heard about that, but basically, I think like 6 months ago, um, Cassie, who I think was a hip hop like singer,
Well, I think his
um,
wife,
she
right?
I think it was his girlfriend. I don't think they were ever married. Maybe it was his wife. I'm not sure. But she basically filed a lawsuit against him saying he was doing all these horrible things to her. He would drug her and then have male prostitutes like have sex with her. He called them freak offs, where he would, and when she came forward with these allegations and filed the lawsuit against him, um, it was a civil suit. So they ended up settling out of court. He'd paid her off in a week. Like literally, she filed the case. A week later, it was done. Um, and it was really strange because Cassie would made mention of these freak offs where
Yeah.
from her perspective, a freak off was basically where like she would like she and Diddy would like party together, get drunk, and then he would like usually drug her like by putting stuff in her drinks or something. And a lot of times, I don't know exactly how she kind of justified this behavior, but what ended up happening was she would get drugged, and then he would hire male prostitutes to like do things to her, um,
Yeah. Just
and
weird stuff.
and and like he would videotape it or something. I don't know, very very
Yeah.
strange stuff. And then this next lawsuit comes out, just recently, with which I think it was some producer filed this lawsuit against Diddy and Universal Records or something like that, because I think it's other someone else in that organization is also part of this. But basically, he said that these freak offs were not just like Cassie specific. Like he would have these freak offs, and he would do freak offs with, like you said, up and coming artists, and he would kind of manipulate them, get them drunk, drug them, and then kind of like collect this blackmail, which would be usually very like, I mean, I want to say embarrassing, but it extends far beyond that because it's literally like you're kind of getting sexually assaulted on camera and you're
Yeah.
drugged. So
And
um,
and
he would collect that blackmail, and like, I mean, if you're like an up and coming hip hop artist and you've got like blackmail out there, like P Diddy can easily hang that over your head and do whatever he wants, make you
yeah.
do whatever he wants at that point.
So
Um,
I think
yeah,
I think you were right about Cassie being an ex-girlfriend, but also not to mention he was probably affiliated or directly committed murder as well. There's several deaths, a lot of deaths in like their circle that are very questionable. That it's pretty much obvious that him or his people like killed these people. So there's that. There's also just the general fact that like there was probably a lot of trafficking, human trafficking going on, sex trafficking similar to the Epstein stuff. And this is probably common in other little circles across Hollywood. I kind of went down, I recently found out about the place called Bohemian Grove where elites would meet up and actually, apparently perform cultic like behaviors and apparently potentially sacrifice or have these like sex rituals or sacrificial rituals, very like sketchy stuff, but it's also like very just rumors and like he said she said type of stuff, but like that type of it's weird because like I don't know why, but one thing I was thinking was like well, what's the weird obsession with the cultic and like with all these freaky things once you get to that like oh I'm 100 I have 100 million plus and I'm like well connected in Hollywood, like why is it that it seems like all these elites want to do weird stuff? And my thought on it is that once you get to a certain point, you pretty much have as much money as you need, and you're like, what do I want to do with this life? Like, I'm as close to God as I can get, right? I can do anything, right? So, like, you only live once. What do I want to get out of this life? Do I want to do some crazy stuff to my deepest, weirdest fantasies? So, I think that there's that. But also, like, when it comes down to it, guys, like, at the end of, like, what would one person really want? It would probably be sex, money, or power of some way. Like I just want to be able to say I have like dominance over this whole country or over, this person or whatever, right? Or I want to be able to say I like could hook up with this person. So I believe that ultimately if you had to decipher someone's true intentions, it probably can be boiled down to money, sex, or power. And especially at the upper levels, they probably want that, but just at the next weirdest, kinkiest like level. So it's just weird. But yeah, this stuff is probably prevalent in different circles across the elites.
Yeah, and my hypothesis is slightly different, but I think all of these things can be true at the same time. Um, I think there's probably a trust building factor in this kind of stuff where like you get to a certain point where essentially most of the people you interact with are kind of like high functioning psychopaths or sociopaths, and they're in really like high positions
Yeah,
of power. And I mean, anybody who's in a position where they're doing something like horrible to another person, just like in some like cultic ritual, very likely they test high on like the psychopathy scale or something. And so what I'm thinking is like very likely people will be like, all right, I don't know you, maybe two elites, let's call them two elites. All right, I don't know you, I don't trust you, but you have influence in this whole other sector that I don't, but I have influence in this sector which you don't. um, and we together we can be extremely powerful because I can make a call and you will do whatever I say. um, if we perfectly trust each other, if we have this seamless trust between each other. And I think largely what it is like kind of like the same way, kind of like smaller clubs or even gangs or groups will sort of formalize trust with one another. It's like, oh yeah, like to join in the gang, you have to kill somebody, and we're gonna watch you do it. And like we've all done something horrible together.
true.
We're gonna die for each other. We trust each other now. We're in this together.
Yeah.
There's nothing more we can do. I mean, I think when you get to a super high level like that, it's very possible that these are just kind of like trust building rituals. Like, we think of
Like
like
gang, like
trust.
your very
Yeah,
elementary
like you're
gangs, but at the
initiated.
highest
Yeah.
elitist level. Yeah.
Exactly, like, they initiate each other almost, um, and then when you have, like, "Okay, look, I know you did something horrible and I have evidence, I have did something horrible and I have evidence. Let's just trust each other, work together, win, win, win all around," except obviously for the victims of these things. And so it's like, I think it's very possible that these are like, the evil equivalent of the corporate trust fall, like the team building activity. We're all gonna
Yeah.
do trust falls together to trust each other, but no, this is 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So, I think that's kind of my take, but yeah, it's pretty dark stuff.